Okay, it's 6 o'clock, so we'll call this meeting to order. Superintendent, if you please call the roll.
President Holt,
Present.
Clerk Grigsby,
Present.
Trustee Poole,
Here.
Trustee Travis,
Here.
Trustee Witch.
Present. And is there any public comment on our closed session agenda items?
We have none.
Not seeing any. So it is 6 o'clock. We will recess the closed session and reconvene here at 7. All right, it's 7 o'clock. We will reconvene here in open session. Clerk Grigsby, do you mind leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice.
No action was taken in closed session, and I move that we approve tonight's agenda.
A second?
And all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? None. All right. And do we have public comment tonight for things not on the agenda?
We do. First up, Craig Buxton.
My name's Craig Buxton. For those who don't know me, I'm the president of the Auburn Host Lions Club and also on the board of the State Theater. But most importantly, we're along with my illustrious colleague here, who's a well-known educator. We work with the Leo and service clubs in the K through 8 and at Placer High School. I've been with Placer High School Leos for 5 years now. And the reason for me even standing up here and asking for a few of your minutes is 2 statements only. One, and I mean this sincerely, you are greatly appreciated for what you are doing to support student clubs, service clubs, no matter how they may evolve, come about. There's a sincere recognition that without your support, they couldn't be. And I know there's now some new guidance, some hopefully improved ways of thinking about when students come up and ask for clubs, what is that process? And by the way, if you're looking for good examples, one of them is actually Colfax High. They have a very interesting way of doing that. The second statement, though, is to reinforce our grateful appreciation for continued support. And I think as I read through and watched the closed door session about some of the work that needed to be done on the policy and whatnot, I was a bit confused as well. So I thought, does this mean that the Auburn host Lions, and then I'm now supposedly the head honcho, do I have to do something different? Because we have a whole process of ensuring that we have support, that we have funds, that we have means to provide the different schools with any kind of need they may have through the educator that becomes their kind of advisor. So I just want to make sure that whatever you decide to do, that bridge you created by allowing us and other pretty well-known organizations to support these clubs is really important. It's an incredible bridge, and your support keeps it strong and enables students to see the benefit of being part of this community. That's my.
Thank you.
Shirley Paris.
Hello, my name is Shirley Paris, and my role this year, one of my roles is to be the Auburn Host Lions Youth Coordinator. And in doing so, we started the service club at Auburn Elementary. We started the service club at Skyridge. It became already well established. And we actually started a service club in Newcastle. So all of that happens because you have dedicated educators and advisors. So you have Jill LeBeau is your advisor at Auburn Elementary. She is working with the kids and very dedicated to being a part of this service group. You have Crystal McDonald and April Johnstone at Skyridge, and then you have Nikki Schichtel at Eva Kane. So all of that happens because you have those dedicated educators, you have the principals who support them, and of course the board. So in your file, you will find our latest event. So on the left, the pictures are of Veterans Day. So we actually had the Placer High Leos come over, and they were mentoring the younger kids and helping decorate at the Veterans Hall. So we had all the service clubs there decorating the day before our event. Then Veterans Day, you can see that they are standing behind the service club table with all of the cards that they had made throughout our schools. And we had the elementary kids as well. Our advisors reached out to our elementary teachers. To your right, you have the essays. This was established about 7 years ago. The parade committee reached out to me, and the Auburn E.V. Kane originally is the only school that ever participated. We were the only invitation to actually create an essay contest and read. We expanded it to all 3 schools, and you have the essay winners. One is missing, Scarlett. I'm gonna forget her last name, but Scarlett hand wrote her essay, and I didn't have a copy of it, but I will make sure that it gets to all of you board members. But these students got up and based on the prompt that they were given by their history teachers, which Nicole Schichtel coordinated, they did history on Vietnam. And they wrote about the history and how our Vietnam veterans needed to have more recognition. And they did an excellent job. And Admiral Bonnie Potter was most impressed with all of these essays. And she told all of the advisors as well as the kids. So something to be greatly proud of. And lastly, in my 9 seconds, the very last section behind those essays is your invitation to Hometown Heroes, which is on that first Friday in December. And thank you. Thank you.
Nathaniel Smith.
Hi there. My name is Nathaniel. I live in Auburn and had the privilege of meeting with you guys over the last month after reaching out. And so thank you for that. For those of you who made time, I really appreciated that. Looking forward to continue to get to know the rest of you guys more and finding ways. So I'm a assistant pastor at a church, and our church, one of our goals is to be more involved in our community, more involved in different ways. And so one of the things also is I campus monitor part-time at AV Kane. I've really enjoyed that experience over the last few years. And one of the things I did want to mention that I've thought about from starting 2 years ago when it was still only middle school is I know that there's been a lot of, waves and hard parts with that transition to elementary. But one of the really cool things has been I've seen so much less middle school drama in talking with the students that are there. I know when I was first there, there was just a lot of middle schooler issues that come with having 300 of them, in one area. But the smaller class size, I've noticed that talking with some of those kids, they seem to have more cohesion together. There's more of that kind of small group feel that I attended a smaller school when I was in Rockland and Antelope Creek. I was a K through 6. And then I did 8th grade at Newcastle Elementary, which was a K through 8. And I know being a part of those groups, having those kids kind of all the way through, the net result at the middle school level seems to be more of cohesive, less drama unit. So that's been really cool to see. Wanted to share that with you guys, just a positive effect that I've seen with the middle schoolers of that transition. Yeah, me and some of the other campus monitors, we joke that this middle schoolers, they're easy. It's some of the little ones that those ones are the ones who don't know what to do with. Because it's sometimes it seems like, there's just a small group, only 5 or 10 kids that take up like 80% of the staff and the campus monitors' time, trying to chase them down, trying to keep them in class. And yeah, so I don't know. That's a bummer. We'll figure that out. But Jason had shared with me the grand jury report that came out in June. And so I had read through that in the section on you guys. And once again, just want to thank you guys for your work the past few years, especially you guys have been working over since 2022 and kind of some of that process and helping get the district into a more financially stable place. I really appreciate that. I'm just kind of coming into this world and seeing what you guys have been working on. And it's been a blessing for me to get to see that and get to see you guys' hard work. And so no, it's appreciated. Please keep, working and serving the community, the students, the staff, protecting all those amazing and wonderful rights that we have in our Constitution. It's such a beautiful thing that we have this here. So thank you. Thank you for your time.
And do we have any more?
Fine.
Okay, so move on to 7A of the Teachers Association. You're gonna stay here for the whole meeting.
Good evening, AUSD school board members and Superintendent Meyer. I appreciate your ongoing dedication to supporting our students, families, and staff. I wanted to share some important reflections on 2 critical areas that shape the learning environment and community culture across our schools: the district's mission and vision statements and the policies governing student clubs and organizations. First, the mission and vision statement of AUSD are pivotal declarations of our shared values and goals. I applaud the board for listening to the student voices and facilitating discussions with the district's core values. AUSD can craft meaningful statements that resonate with everyone, students, staff, and families alike. This collaboration approach will ensure that mission and vision accurately reflect who we are and where we aspire to go. Second, I urge the school board to consider the following points when updating and refining the district's policy on student clubs, taking into account the requirements of Regulation 6145.5, which mandates equal access for all student organizations without discrimination based on the content or viewpoint of the clubs. A clear, inclusive board policy aligned with this regulation is essential to guarantee that all students have equitable opportunities to form and participate in clubs, supported by certificated teacher advisors. I ask the board to recognize the significant effort required from staff advisors advisors, particularly those overseeing our service clubs and our leadership clubs. These clubs often demand extensive work, community outreach, and sustained leadership to engage students across all grade levels successfully. Supporting these advisors with clear policies and adequate resources and recognition is vital to sustaining robust extracurricular programs that benefit our entire student body as well as our community. Thank you for your consideration for these important matters. I am confident that by embracing both student input and our guiding statements and providing thoughtful support for student organizations, AUSD will continue to foster a vibrant, inclusive, empowering educational community. Respectfully, Sarah Liebert, AUTA President.
Thank you. And I don't see CSCA this evening. Okay, moving down to the consent agenda. Is there anything anybody needs to pull? Like to pull?
Yes. I would like to pull, item J.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, so that aside, I move that we approve tonight's consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, and clerk, if you please conduct a roll call vote.
Absolutely. President Holt.
Aye.
Clerk Grigsby, aye. Trustee Poole.
Hi.
Trustee Travis. Aye. And trustee Wedge.
Aye.
And trustee Wedge, if you want to
Yes.
bring up Jay, please.
I just want to recognize, Jeremy for just the hard work on this, the Rock Creek facility, that is going to be a vital staple of our community that is going to be taken over the facility. That's going to be a huge need, I think, not only for Auburn, but for Placer County and the surrounding area. So I just wanted to recognize Jeremy on the hard work that he did to get this agreement done and put forward. So with that, thank you, Jeremy.
Thank you.
I totally concur, Jason. I want to jump on there too. So what we're talking about there is the facilities used with Placer County Sheriff's Office. So it's going to be bringing in not an insignificant amount of income, roughly $84,000 put in here per year to the district. And I've talked to law enforcement from other areas in the county who are sending officers who will be working at that facility. So be a pretty good thing for the community. Thanks for pulling that, Jason.
Yep. All right, and with that, I will move to approve item J.
Second.
And clerk, if you please conduct a roll call vote.
Absolutely. Trustee Wedge.
Aye.
Trustee Travis. Aye. Trustee Poole.
Hi.
Clerk Grigsby. Aye. And President Holt.
Aye. Moving to item 9A, approval of comprehensive school safety plan.
So annually, we approve a comprehensive school safety plan. Last year, we moved to a district-wide safety plan given our enrollment under 2,500 students. So we're continuing that this year with a full Auburn Union safety plan. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I will talk about some of the things we do to run this through the community and make sure that we touch on all important points and cover things appropriately. So we get feedback from our local law enforcement agencies. For us, that's Auburn PD and also Placer County Sheriff. We reach out to fire and get input. Last year, we had some Placer County Sheriff input. We made some adjustments this year. Just Fire had adjustments. I believe that's right, Jenny? Just Fire had adjustments on the safety plan. So we made a few tweaks there. And then we push it out to school site councils. So principals go through this with school site councils, which have teacher, staff, and parent representation, answer any questions they have. And then ultimately, we bring it to you for approval this evening. There's a few changes. When you look at the page numbers I'm about to give you, you have to go off the pages on the actual document, not the PDF, because I think we took out a title page or something, so they're slightly off. But on 29, we had a few updates on safe ingress and egress. So we did note that a principal or designee has the right to revoke an individual's visitor access to a campus should they believe that that visitor is interfering with the orderly operation of the school campus and or daily activities of the school. It doesn't happen often, but if we have, for example, that are coming on campus and disrupting the learning environment or making people feel unsafe, we will sometimes say you have a period of time, whether it's a short period of time or the remainder of the school year, that you no longer have access to the school campus given behavior. So we wanted to make sure that was added in there and was appropriately noted. And stop me at any point if you have questions about these sections. We also updated the table. It was very minor. We just separated out where we review the comprehensive school safety plan. We had it as one bullet or action item for site and district level, but we actually do those separate. So we just parse those out. Sorry, that's on page 31. And then we did some updates on 36. We did page 36. We did Alice active threat training last year with all certificated, and we just on Monday did all classified staff. So we updated that language to indicate that instead of it's coming, kind of it's happened. And then we updated student lessons. We anticipate rolling those out next school year. Opioid prevention on page 37, we have now added naloxone boxes that are mounted next to our AEDs at each campus. Those are opioid antidote medication, for lack of a better description. So we have each of those mounted, and it previously stated we'd be working on it. So that's on page 37. On page 38, we updated information about our behavioral threat assessment and management training, given that we've now trained site teams. As of Monday, all staff has been trained on how to make a referral to the threat assessment management team. So we updated that section. And then there's a few new in their entirety sections. So on page 40, last year we rolled this out not through the comprehensive safety plan, but we did roll out environmental impact information. So when there's air quality issues, when the air quality goes, well, I guess technically up, the number goes up, but that means it's worse. And also when it's hot, we have excessive heat. There are now color-coded documents in there that align with guidelines from air.gov, which is what we use to monitor air quality and what's recommended on heat restrictions. So those are now in the safety plan. That was something that was recommended by our teachers to have in there. So it's all in one document. So we added those things this year. Page 41, directly following the environmental impacts. There was a new Assembly Bill 49 and Senate Bill 98 that was signed by the governor sometime in October. I don't remember, but it was sometime in early October prior to the 15th. And that added a requirement to have an immigration enforcement notification section added to the safety plan. So that is new in its entirety. It talks about what triggers a notification. So what type of immigration visit to campus would trigger a notification, how we would do that notification, and what disclosure would be made of any student records. Basically nothing that's outside of FERPA unless there was a court order or some sort of warrant, and then limited access to public areas of school campus, again, unless there was a warrant or some sort of directive from a judge. And that is a new section in its entirety. Another Senate bill that was passed 848, also in October. On page 41, there's a child abuse prevention section that's entirely new. Although our board policy on child abuse prevention covers what we needed. So what we did is we just made sure to include that language in the safety plan, and it kind of checked all the boxes without doing something new. So that's also included in there as a new section to the safety plan, although not new board policy language. And then last two things on page 42, directly following that. Again, Senate Bill 143, although this one passed last year, we have to include an instructional continuity plan. That's our, essentially, if COVID happens again and we have to send our kids home, what do we do? And it talks about notification timelines, how we roll out instruction, and what our overarching plan is if we do have to close schools for a period of 10 days or longer. So that was in there last year, but it wasn't quite as detailed as it is now, given the clarity on the Senate bill language. So that's pretty much entirely new section. And then last but not least, slight change on page 60, emergencies, loss or failure of utilities. We did update throughout the document, correct titles for Director of MOT, and then included, this was an ask as well of our teachers last year, and we made sure to include it this year. If there's broken water or electrical lines, or if there's loss of water, there's two different sections, but we added the same bullets. The school administrator will notify our director of MOT as well as the site custodial and maintenance staff, and then additional personnel notified at the discretion to take care of the issue. And then last but not least, myself and the director of MOT will assess the situation and the school needs to evaluate the feasibility of keeping school open should we lose water or power.
I only have one question.
Yeah.
The language on the instructional continuity plan.
Yep.
Says it was last revised on October 1, 2025 and adopted by the Auburn Elementary School District on December 11th, 2025. Just
Oh,
that's gonna look like
sorry.
past tense, but
Check that. Where are?
so it's
Right at
page
the top.
41.
It also has the date July 1st in the next paragraph of 2025. I
Okay,
think
let's see.
that, yeah.
Okay, so that adoption date should be today. I don't know why I put December 11th. I apologize. So if you move to approve, we'll move with the amendment of today's date. So it'll actually be 11/13/2025 would be the adoption date. It was revised in October because that's when it was being written, but it would be adopted today. And then okay, so that language below in the next paragraph, Emily, that's the Senate bill language. We have to include it by July 1st, 2025, which we did. We had this ICP, but it gave further details to break it down into all these
To update
boxes.
it, okay.
So we updated it. So that date would stay the same. It's just when the Senate bill was requiring us to. But the December date should be today. My apologies on that.
Are there any questions on that?
There was one edit for page 47 that I sent it to Brittany earlier. It's just a language, students experiencing homelessness instead of homeless students.
Yeah, we had been changing that. Is it in a green box, by the way, or a white box?
It's in a green box.
Okay, if it's in a green box, that comes directly from DTS as the primer for that question. That's the question being asked.
So that's the state's
Oh,
language.
okay.
So sorry, I
It's
didn't
not-
realize
It's
that.
not
when
our
we-
answer. It's,
Yeah, our
it's
answer
their
is in the
question.
white box. The question being asked that we're following is in the green.
got it.
So
Okay.
that one I can't change. Well, I guess I could if I reached out to DTS, but that's just kind of standard
Yeah.
language that comes our way.
Any other-
That was all.
Anybody else? Well, then I move that we approve the safety plan with the amendment of the date as discussed.
I'll second.
And all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none. Moving to 9B.
Okay, so annually in November, we need to decide on what the annual organization meeting will be for the board. The attachment that you have there outlines the requirement that we have to hold this meeting no later than December 20th. The staff recommendation, should the board agree, is to approve our next board meeting, which is December 11th, as our annual organization meeting and draft the necessary organization meeting topics at that time. Questions?
Any questions? Well, I move that we approve 9B, the annual organizational meeting date.
I'll second that.
All right, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Seeing none. Moving to 9C, BP 6145.5 and the corresponding AR.
Okay. So this is the language that we had for first read last time regarding student organizations and clubs. I think one of the delineations we want to make and talk about is that when we're talking about 6145.5, this would be things that are happening during the school day as student organizations. We sometimes use clubs interchangeably. So this would be things happening at lunchtime, for example. After school, we have a number of things that we call clubs. And I just want to be clear because some of those we fund, for example, out of ELOP dollars, our expanded learning opportunity program. And so that could be a teacher chosen thing. For example, we have a Japanese club at EV Kane because a teacher knows there's an interest in anime. She's an art teacher and various things related to Japanese culture. So she started this Japanese club, but she started that, she runs it. Kids come and go as they wish to, and then we pay hourly out of our ELOP dollars for that. That wouldn't necessarily fall under this. This would be student groups and clubs to reinforce the instructional program that are happening during the school hours of 8 to 2:15.
So the Lions Club, those service clubs that are member from the public
Mhm.
spoke of, that doesn't fall under what we're talking about right here.
Well, technically it would if they did it at lunch, but Lions Club, I think, still falls under this, the Lions Service Club, because Craig and Shirley are providing guidance, but they have a staff advisor. So Nikki Schichtel, Jill LeBeau, and it's April and Crystal, I think, at Skyridge. So they're still a staff advisor to that student club, even if it happened at lunch. It would be different if Craig was coming to run it on his own with the students outside of a teacher being that person.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
But if it happened after school, then again, it's going to fall under a different set of rules than during the school day student organizations. And then, we also have other agencies that run things at school, like you could run Girl Scouts, you could run Boy Scouts. That's a whole nother avenue. It's not necessarily a club, but they ask for facilities use agreement, which Jeremy oversees, and then we could let them use a room. And they would run that on our campuses, but not necessarily with a teacher or an advisor. So I think sometimes, and I think where we're getting confused with this is, and I apologize for that, is that we use the word club sort of ubiquitously, but there are different things that we're talking about. This policy would apply to what's happening during those non-instructional times of the school day, which primarily for us is lunch. No one's going to really run anything at a 10-minute break or recess.
Right.
Looking at what sort of language we picked up, though, I think to Amber's point, we talk about non-school persons shall not direct, conduct, control, or regularly attend activities of student groups.
Mhm.
For purposes of this policy, regular attendance is defined as attending more than 2 meetings in a given school year. So somebody from the Lions Club, that individual couldn't come more than twice in the school year.
Right. If they were running it during the school day at lunchtime, then Craig or Shirley could come and help talk to the club about, I forgot what's the name of the Wreaths Across America, Wreaths Across America.
Mhm.
So she could come at the December meeting and talk about Wreaths Across America and organize that with them. And maybe she talks about the Veterans Day thing in November. And then from there, Nikki's running the club for the remainder of the year.
Right.
If there were other things Shirley was participating in, and obviously this happens because Wreaths Across America and all those things are not happening during school day, she could certainly still interact with the kids, but during the school day portion of a club, it would be no more than twice a year. That's the red language there that was added at the board's request under number 5 for defining regular attendance.
So do we have the language that clarifies that we're not talking about ULA or these other clubs?
Yeah, let me find it up here. Okay, so it says it in closed forum. Does it still have it below? So in closed forum in the first line there, in order to maintain a closed forum on school campuses, only student initiated groups that relate directly to the curriculum shall be allowed to meet on school premises during non-instructional time. So non-instructional time of the school day would be for us lunchtime. Otherwise, school's over.
It has that language in option 2 too.
Does it? Okay.
I was wondering if we needed to clarify that non-instructional time when during the regularly scheduled school day.
We
just
could
for
add something like
clarification.
that. All student initiated clubs shall be given equal access to meet on school premises during non-instructional time within the school day without regard to, and continue from there.
I think that might give more clarity.
Okay.
Yeah, anything to make it really clear, so it's easy for people.
I'm wondering how service club would fall under that though, since it's not student led.
Well,
Yeah, I was wondering that
It
too. That's
doesn't
what-
seem, it seems like that would not be included in this particular category.
Yeah, don't they have officers in student? I thought they did have officers and what have you
They,
in service
I believe
clubs.
they do have
Yeah.
officers, but it's still.
Not service club?
well, that might be an evolution that those clubs should be taking that too, to have more student run, or them really taking up kind of the helm there. While they'll still have their faculty advisor, who's there, it's the same ones we've got. But maybe just the students will be expected to take more of a leadership role of the club.
And we can certainly, assuming if we move forward in this regard, then we can make sure we're clear with staff. Okay, so let me just write this out and then read it back to you and make sure I have it right. Okay, so I think we were talking previously in first read about limited forum. So if we look at second paragraph of limited forum, it would now read, all student initiated groups shall be given equal access to meet on school premises during non-instructional time within the school day without regard to the religious, political, philosophical, or other speech content. The board shall ensure that, and then it goes into the list. And then we did make an amendment on 5 with the red text to say that for the purpose of this policy, regular attendance is defined as attending more than 2 groups in a given school year.
So I have a quick question on number 5, the amendment on that.
Mhm.
Do we have any student-led clubs right now that that this will directly affect?
After, oh, you mean student clubs where, yes, that we run during the school day, like at lunchtime, that have people attending that are not staff more than 2 times?
Correct.
Yes, I believe we do have, I don't know if we have it at more than one campus, but I believe we do have a Bible club that is run by some sort of non-school personnel, whether, I don't know exactly their title, but from a local church.
So this policy right here would directly affect them, that that person couldn't attend more than twice a year.
More than twice if it's at lunchtime. Now, they could still have that club, certainly. They could still have a Bible club if kids are asking for the Bible club and there's a teacher or staff member advisor. Doesn't have to be a teacher, I guess technically be a classified person, but you could have a advisor for that club. They could run it during lunchtime and they could have someone come and be a guest speaker, what have you, no more than 2 times a year. But it couldn't be run by a community member on campus.
Is there not currently a teacher involved with that club?
I don't think so. I believe if I'm correct, right, Amber? Because I think there's one at Skyridge, yeah. So there's a community member running a lunchtime club. And currently under what we had, which was just kind of the opening part of this policy, if you recall, we had nothing below to pick a type of forum. That was permissible. You could have a community member running a club.
So I think the goal here is to ensure these are student-led clubs. Am I right?
I think it's twofold. It's to ensure they're student-led and that their staff supervised.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So currently, as it stands now, what I'm taking, so we have Bible clubs on, on several of the campuses right now. So that would directly affect those student-led clubs if this policy was to be passed tonight.
In the way that they're currently structured, yes.
Okay.
Probably also the service club, it sounds like,
Okay.
and potentially other clubs.
Potentially, yeah.
But-
There's, I can't really think of one off the top of my head. I mean, because Service Club, like I said, does have an advisor. I think those are probably the best 2 examples. And as long as we switch to an advisor, should the students still wish to have the club, it could remain. It just would move towards more of a student-led focus.
So I don't want to make a decision on this language tonight because I feel like we need to further develop the language just to cover the after-school piece.
Okay.
Sitting here trying to think like how we could write that, because I think we need to make sure we capture that second paragraph in option 2 needs to also apply to after-school clubs or groups that are called clubs.
Okay.
So I think we need to develop that a little bit more clearly before we adopt something.
And also, I would like to get more of a detailed list on what clubs actively now that this currently could affect, whether it's the Bible club or it's, other clubs that are actively running.
Okay, so 2 things. For the first one, further developing language so that we clarify after-school clubs and, things funded out of ELAP, that kind of stuff. So I can draft some of that, send it to the board for review and or at least to you, Greg, and make sure that's kind of capturing and then share it with everyone. And then we can bring it back in December. And then also I can send you guys out. We'll reach out to sites. It'll take a little time for them to put it together, but I don't think terribly long. But we'll get a list of clubs together that would potentially be, or how about we just do clubs, period. And then you'd be able to see like title of club, and then just, is it a teacher advisor or is it a community advisor? That would be enough to kind of tell you who's going to be impacted, but then you could see the breadth of it. Does that sound reasonable? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll send those things out to you via email to take a look at, and then we'll bring it back, still second read, you think in December?
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
Is the board good with that?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm good with that.
Okay, then Jenny will just go no action taken on that particular one.
So moving then to item 10A, IT, our discussion on artificial intelligence.
See how this works. I got it. Behind the back trick. So this is just a couple objectives we're gonna go over regarding AI and what we're currently doing and what we may be doing in the future. We're gonna go over the current status, the current technologies that the pros and cons of what we're doing with our apps, and future, what we plan to do in the future. So staff and faculty currently have access to Gemini, Google Space Gemini AI. They also have access to others because we're currently not filtering them out for staff and faculty. But we have decided to set up our filtering system that we use for the students, also for staff, so that they are tunneled into one area so they don't inadvertently perhaps put data out there that it shouldn't be out there. That's currently what we're doing for staff and faculty. Students currently do not have any access to any LLM, large language model. No Gemini, no OpenAI, none of that, unless they're doing it on their own computers outside of their accounts. We have two different technologies, an open model and a closed model. Open model is those publicly accessible ChatGPT, Gemini that you use in your Gmail account. Those are those open models, and whatever you do in there is it goes into the system and it stays in that system. It's part of their large language model. The closed system is what we have through Gemini. What we put in there stays within the district's purview. We could load it with historical data to generate reports or whatever, but it stays within our domain. We have control over that. It's never accessible on the internet or searchable. As far as privacy reviews, as we're looking at new applications to purchase or looking at applications that we currently have, everybody's putting AI in some form or another. So we look at those privacy policies and user license agreements and see what they do as far as data sharing and so forth. And we'll continue to do that for new products that come in before we purchase those. It'll be a new function of vetting systems. Then, oops. There's going to be future training courses for staff. And what we believe may happen in the future, because California, I think, is working on requirements for AI in classroom, they'll develop some curriculum around AI, and to prepare those students for high school, we'll probably have an official curriculum and we'll then allow that access to students in that area. So those are the things that we're currently doing, plan to do in the future.
Is there a timeline on the middle school curriculum is it being developed or something? that
It's
you
not
have
something
access to?
we're doing right now, but I think there are agencies that are doing it, and I think California right now is currently working on guidelines.
I think if I could add one piece, I think the board policy was kind of the first step in everyone trying to catch up with, well, if you ever could, I guess, because it's always growing, right, with AI. So that board policy kind of outlines philosophically kind of the beliefs about where AI is appropriate, where it's not, and what the limitations should be in education. This will get in next, then we'll get into the AR that we wrote in conjunction with a lot of people in this room around what we're currently doing and what we might do. But there has been talk about training coming from CDE being developed, just like they would with anything else they send us, to kind of give us access. Like, for example, RDRS screeners with multitudes, were created. Those are given to schools for free. Things like that will probably come, but we don't necessarily have, we'll see it in spring or we'll see it in fall. We don't know that quite yet. Any other questions?
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. I might yell at you in the back if they ask me questions I don't know on the next one.
All right, so 10B, BP 0441, the AR.
Okay, so the BP we presented for first read last time and it remains unchanged. So this is CSBA's recommendation for a policy on artificial intelligence. And again, like I said earlier, it just kind of gives philosophical viewpoints on what we should and shouldn't be using AI for and how, we should be responsible, secure, and accountable for all of that. If you have questions on that, I'm happy to talk about it. I didn't change anything in there, but I did draft AR that aligns with the BP. That was the request of the board, I think September, if I'm correct, is when we talked about this. So let me go through the AR a little bit. So what we did is we went through as a team, our executive cabinet went through this a couple of different times and made tweaks to look at how we might implement what was outlined in the BP. So what we talked about at the start is just that our goal would be to ensure that use of artificial intelligence by staff or students aligns with those principles outlined in the board policy. And then we define that for the purpose of the regulation, AI means an engineered or machine-based system that varies in its level of autonomy and that can, for explicit or implicit objectives, infer from the input it receives how to generate outputs. That's kind of what Dave was just talking about. We use Gemini. But you'll see in here, we do specifically call out that we would use closed systems. So if you recall from what Dave presented a minute ago, if you go on Gemini just as a general Gmail user, it may look similar, but through your Gmail account, that's an open system. So anything I put in there now exists everywhere. And when Christine types in something, it may scrape the internet and find something I've typed into Gemini or anywhere on the internet really, and include that in its answer that it gives to Christine. In our system, anything we put into Gemini, when we're on an Auburn account, will stay within that and won't go out to the general public to be scraped. So our preference is for closed systems, and we talk about that in approval processes for AI tools. So we would prioritize security and privacy, bless you, when existing practices or adopting new practices regarding AI. We talk about how we would adopt, purchase, and pilot. So we'd be doing this similar to anything else we do in the district. And then we would look at data sharing agreements. Primarily, that's Dave's department, looking at those things like he had just talked about, to review how personally identified information is used, stored, and shared. And this is where we would provide preference to those tools that maintain a closed system. And then, of course, we have to align with all laws and what have you. And that's kind of the approval process in a nutshell. Any questions on that part so far?
Is the closed system is just AUSD. It doesn't include PCOE or any other localities.
No, well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but our closed system is just within, you have to be on your Auburn account utilizing Gemini. And then when you use Gemini, anything you put in there remains within, only accessible within Auburn. So theoretically, if I type something in my Auburn account, right, Dave, if I type something in my Auburn account and then Christine asks something of Gemini, it could scrape what I've put into Gemini because we're both within AUSD. Right, but it wouldn't be accessible to anyone outside of AUSD. Does that clarify a little bit? Okay. No. Okay, so then we get into staff use. And right now, like Dave was saying, our employees have access to a variety of tools that they can get when they're online. Our thought is that, especially given these things that are coming our way in terms of being a little more diligent with our AI use, is that we would treat it just like we do with students, that you could use Gemini. I'm sorry, students can't use that. We leave Gemini open to staff just like we do now, but we wouldn't leave everything else open. Because if a staff member does go into ChatGPT, for example, right now, that's not something that we subscribe to and have a closed system through, so that would be open. So what would happen is it would get locked down, and if a staff member tried to go to ChatGPT on their Auburn account, it wouldn't be available, but they could use Gemini, which is exactly the same. It's just Google's version. Okay, and so they would be permitted to use approved AI tools. In our case right now, that would be Gemini, for the sole purpose related to their job duty. We really wanted to be clear that staff, any of us right now who may be using AI, we're using it to augment our work, but it shouldn't be used as a replacement for essential human input, judgment, or required job duties. We did some things that are permissible. Obviously, it's not a comprehensive list, but drafting initial communications, getting yourself started, and then editing from there, summarizing lengthy documents, lesson planning support. I know a lot of APE teachers who use this very effectively. I have a third grader who was working on basketball skills and has limited, mobility of their left arm, and it will come up with lesson plans for that, which is incredible time saver, right? So things like that. Under no circumstances, however, shall staff input or upload any personally identifiable information, confidential student records, or sensitive operational data into the AI platform, regardless of whether or not that tool is vetted. So we always we try to be really candid with people and very open about, look, if you're trying to generate a goal for an IEP, we understand you might need some help with that language, but you can't say, Brittany Meyer in 4th grade who has a specific learning disability of auditory processing. You can say a 4th grade student with auditory processing, but you can't use a name in there for trying to generate a goal. And then before deployment, all AI outputs must be thoroughly reviewed, fact-checked, edited, and verified for accuracy, appropriateness, and compliance with copyright laws. So basically, we're saying on the front end as a human, you should be making sure you're checking and putting the right stuff in. Only use systems that we're approving, which will be closed. And then on the back end, you should be vetting again before you put it out there to the public to make sure it's all correct. In a nutshell, that's that section.
How is that? Just a quick question on that.
Yeah.
Is there a method put in place on how we're actually gonna fact check that, or is that gonna be, logged, or just gonna say this has been fact checked?
Yeah, so we talked about that. So what we were talking about with Michelle is in HR is that, we would kind of outline this for employees, provide them with this kind of, here's what you should do, here's how it works in kind of terms of your day-to-day job, and you would sign that agreement. It would be like any other professional agreement that we have with employees. We're not following them around every single day. They're professionals, and as long as they know what's expected of them, we anticipate they follow those guidelines. If they didn't, then we'd have to go through an HR process to figure out what disciplinary action would be warranted. Yeah. Any other questions on the staff section? Okay. For students, we wanted to say that we do recognize that that there's educational importance, especially around AI literacy. It's just like back in the day when Wikipedia started and we had to talk to kids about that. Like, just because it exists on the internet doesn't mean it's the truth, right? So AI literacy will be very important, but with limited exception, except as outlined, students would not be granted with direct interactive access to generative AI. So that's things like Gemini. Even though staff would have access to that, students would not. Obviously, we have a whole issue with plagiarism, which is maybe first and foremost in our minds as educators, but also digital safety. We don't want them importing things in there, whether or not it stays within the Auburn system. So kids would not have access to that. But there are times when they would potentially would. So we have students with individualized education plans that have access to things that may use AI. And if that's within the purview of their IEP, we'd make sure we vet those tools and those devices, but they would be allowed to have that. And we also recognize that students may tangentially experience AI. We just want to be clear that teachers may be using AI. It could also be embedded within some of our online curriculums. For example, when kids are taking assessments and they're getting questions wrong and it adjusts so that it levels them down, those things they may then tangentially have access to, but we're not providing them direct access to general. Questions about that? All right, so this gets into, there's a monitoring enforcement should be the next title. We'll work on the spacing there. But professional development staff would be provided with training on AI tools. So once we're at the point where we're saying these are the only things we're allowed to use, we'll make sure they know how to use them, as well as acceptable use and privacy. This is a little bit about what Jason was talking about. We're thinking we would start that in the next school year where we're providing all of that information will give us some time to draft it. And then monitoring enforcement would be also through IT, you know, and if anyone's doing anything untoward, whether it's with AI or not, we're going to get notifications. So those things would still be in place. And then if anything comes up that needs to be reported, it would eventually come to me or the principal perhaps as a designee if it was a site issue. And then review, this is just always going to be there. We know things are changing all the time. So we just need to look at this regularly and making sure we're updating it as the landscape changes, because it will. Questions or recommendations? This is first read, so give us anything you want to see changed or augmented, and then we'll bring it back.
I just wanted to like align the dates, with the PD and the rollout of this to make sure that they're happening at the same time and not rolling it out before the PD happens.
So if we were to roll this out in 26, 27, you'd want the AR to take place in 26, 27 as well in terms of like limiting staff to Gemini, let's say. We would do that in August if we're providing PD in August.
Right.
Okay. Anything else?
Not seeing anything else. Thanks. Good work. So moving then to 10C, the August board policy updates, board policy special updates first.
Okay. We have 3 board policy things tonight. That was number 1. This is number 2, but I promise number 3 is pretty light. So at least I hope so. So bear with me. Okay, so this is short on page number, heavy on content. So there are, I believe, 3 policies in here, but we can go through them. Again, this is first read, so give us any thoughts you have, and then we'll bring it back. The first one in your packet is 6141.2, recognition of religious beliefs and customs. And Amber or Emily, jump in at any point. We went through this as a board subcommittee, board policy subcommittee. So the 3 policies in here are they all have updated language related to Mahmoud v. Taylor. That was a court case that concluded and judgment was rendered at the end of June of this year. So in short, it opened the door a little bit on what parents could opt out from based on whether or not it interferes with the religious teaching that they have the right to instruct their child on as a parent. So I'm going to skip for a second to the last 2. The policies at the end of this are sexual health and AIDS prevention, and both the BP and the AR, and then comprehensive sexual health, both the BP and the AR. Those, and I did review this with our attorney as it was recommended by CSBA. Those 2 policies, we've always in the state of California had an opt-out policy. In fact, we send it out as an annual notification at the beginning of the year. If parents don't, we provide it in 8th grade. If parents don't want their 8th grader to have it, then their 8th grader does something else and is provided an alternative location during that period. When Ethan, our attorney, read through that, he said, there's nothing in here that really is going to drastically change anything. The only one that does change is that policy at the start, 6141.2. So as you read through this in the BP and you get to the bottom is where it starts to talk about opt-out. So the last paragraph on the BP, when required by law, the district shall notify parents, guardians that they may, via written request, opt their students out of instruction, and it continues. And then on the AR that follows that, you'll see specific instructions on opt-out. So our attorneys did recommend a slight language change there. It's on page 2. Page 2 of the regulation, right under the blue box.
Where it says parents, guardians.
Yep, parents, guardians that believe district instruction conflicts. So if I give you just a second to read that, then I'll kind of explain what that means. And then I think Emily wants to talk a little bit about it because she has some language to provide you guys as well. So I'll be quiet for a second and let you read that underlined part. So a couple of things to point out here. The rewritten language has 2 requirements. The crossed out sections have 3. Number 2 and 3 in the crossed out sections, I was having trouble determining how they were vastly different from one another, and Ethan agreed. And so there's a few changes we made. One, there's only 2 things. Number 1 is parents have to tell us what the specific instructional content that the requester believes is in conflict with their religious beliefs, customs, or practices. That would be this specific lesson or this specific topic, not like chapter 7 or all of math instruction, right? You have to tell us specifically, because no one's going to make a teacher sit there and figure out which part of math instruction, which part of chapter 7. And if, we're using our curriculum, parents have access to that at any point. So they can review that throughout the year and say, hey, whenever chapter 4, lesson 2 comes up, that's the one I want to opt my kid out of. Step 1, they have to be specific. Step 2, they have to tell us how that specific instruction conflicts substantially interferes with their particular religious belief, custom, or practice. So the example that I gave Ethan, and I said, is it like this? And he said, yes, is, for example, we may be teaching about local government officials, and we're talking about the state of California, and Harvey Milk is an example that we give. Harvey Milk is a known individual who is part of the gay community. So just because we're teaching about Harvey Milk, that wouldn't necessarily be an opt-out if he just happens to be a gay individual. That's also part of the FAIR Act in California for social studies content. But if we were teaching about, I don't know why we would do this, but if for some reason people were teaching about his beliefs and whether they're right or wrong and all the things, that could be something that someone would say, I want to opt out of. So that's where we have to, that number 2, that's where we have to make a decision. And so what we said is you need to submit that through a form. We actually have a couple examples from districts around here that are using a Google form, which I think would work best because it also gives us notification if we get one submitted. We would have them submit that to the Director of Student Support, which is Kelly. And then once we get it, we would review it as a district. Most likely it's going to come to me. Kelly and I are going to work through it together and determine whether it meets or not. And if it is questionable, then it says, we may work with legal counsel to figure out if we would grant it or not. And that's sort of his recommended language there. Any questions on that before we look at alternative language as well? Okay. Emily, you want to present what you had to?
Sure. When we initially sent this to Ethan, I think the idea was that he would be doing more with this than just condensing the language. So I went and kind of rewrote this opt-out policy as well as an AR and an exhibit. That might be a little too much, but just for you guys to see where I'm going with this. Anyhow, take these and pass them down.
I can share Renee too. We want to have copies for anybody.
There, I have. plenty of
Okay,
copies.
good deal.
And so having spoken with Brittany at some point, she suggested that, or maybe it came from Ethan, I don't know, that there be one opt-out form available online. And that, so I kind of took these 2 ideas and put them together. So this outlines an opt-out form that would allow parents or guardians to opt out, that's available online, but also obviously through the office and through the first of the year push out.
Can you say where on here?
So it would be
what
the
this would
full
replace?
opt-out section.
Starting,
Starting.
okay, but not the blue box. Okay,
So just that section that Brittany was just discussing,
okay.
what I have put on the first page where it says opt-outs, that's my suggested language.
So you're suggesting right there is where 1, 2, and 3 are starting. So
Yes.
I have is this new, the district shall provide notice when instructional content burdens the free exercise of religion?
I believe the district does provide notice for with when you do the opt-out, isn't that part of the language of the opt-out? Is that there's notice being provided?
Yeah, so My understanding is we have to let them know that an opt-out exists, putting it on, and that was my question to Ethan. If we put it on the website and it's findable, that's enough notice for them to know it exists. And that we have it available.
Yeah, because it seems
So
like it
then
would be
maybe
hard.
take that.
Yeah,
That's fine.
just because then teachers aren't like, when am I supposed to?
Right.
do this?
Yeah, that would be my read on it too. It's like, well, what is notice, and then are we liable for not sending it when somebody feels it's the burden?
So what do you think? Like, shall make it available online or?
The district shall provide access to an opt-out form.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's similar to the language that Ethan had there.
What if we did something like this in that sentence? The district shall provide access to an opt-out form for use. Oh, sorry. No. Start again. Put that in the wrong spot. The district shall provide access to an opt-out request for when it is believed that instructional content substantially burdens the free exercise of religion.
Yeah, that works.
So I know we're all reading through this still, but Brittany, looking at Ethan's, comparing this to Emily's, talks about the ways in which specific instructional conflict or would instructional content include things like assemblies, guest speakers, and supplemental reading?
Potentially, so we have core content that's adopted, and then we have board policy on supplemental instruction. So if there's things that we think are important for intervention, it primarily applies to intervention, but also just to bolster the curricular program. Ren Fair, for example, is not necessary, but it's bolstering that particular social studies content. You could probably argue that there might be assemblies or what have you that we bring in to, again, relate, but aren't necessarily part of the adopted curriculum.
But
So
if
you
somebody
could think
had,
supplemental, maybe broadly. Sorry, go
okay.
ahead.
Oh, so if somebody though, the Ren Fair was in direct opposition to their religious beliefs, that would be covered in the shorter language that's provided.
Under number 2,
Yeah.
I would consider that under number 2. I would say that's a supplemental activity.
Oh, I mean, under the language that Ethan has, just specific.
Oh,
instructions.
sorry, you're looking at, okay,
Yeah.
yep.
Sorry, yeah, so not number 2, but just under Ethan's.
Yeah, because it would be instructional content. So what's related to whether that's adopted curriculum or supplemental curriculum, it's related to the instruction. What do you feel conflicts? Yes. And I believe the spirit of this, when it was drafted, to align with Mahmoud V. Taylor, that was the purpose, right? Because these were supplemental books that were being read that were challenged in Mahmood v. Taylor. So whether it's books or a Ren Fair or an assembly, that would be something linked to the instruction they could ask to be opted out of.
One thing I'm trying to do here is take the burden off the superintendent and the district for deciding what qualifies as a religious belief. If you go down to the exhibit, there's an example sentence where you just write out your how, your what, your why. And unless it's frivolous, it should be exempted.
So some of this is new, right? So okay, all of it. So I'm looking at, again, the advanced notice piece. I'm wondering about that in the alternative assignments piece. Is that something that, what does that look like now?
Can you tell me where you're looking, Amber?
Page 3.
Oh, yeah.
E. I mean, I'm
The-
assuming if there's an opt-out of something, a student does do something else, but
Yeah. So right now,
I know this was a big part of that Supreme Court case. I
know.
listened to the whole thing.
I know.
I remember.
and I will be totally honest with you, it is still relatively ambiguous. So is more going to come that tightens it up in the future? I think so. It just hasn't been long enough, I think, for it to happen. But right now, the only one we really have an opt out to is comprehensive sexual health. And that's kind of, if you don't want it, you just tell us you don't get it. To be honest, the alternative that the student is provided is typically they're in another class. And like, for example, this year our PE teachers are going to do it.
Right, but
So
they're
they'll
not
do
graded.
PE,
That's
right?
Right. So I think I'm assuming that the alternative assignment, the rationale probably that is like somebody's getting instructed in something, then they're missing instruction.
Right, if it's a history class and, chapter 3, you don't want your child to do that, then the teacher would come up with an alternative neutral assignment that doesn't touch on that, but would just.
Yeah, because it does say in there specifically that they can't be held, like they can't lose points and their grade suffers because they're opted out of something.
Right.
And we should provide an alternative assignment. What that assignment would look like, I don't honestly, I don't know if I have a great example for you, because we haven't had to work through a situation.
Well, I think looking at the Mahmood v. Taylor case, it would have just been assigning a different book.
Right.
You know, like that
Right.
would have been it, because it wasn't necessarily the material that was in the book that was the core curriculum. That wasn't the lesson. It was just the book that was used.
Right. Maybe that's a good example. And again, we're going to work in hypotheticals here, but I don't know. My son's in 7th grade, not here, but somewhere else, and they just read Tangerine. And if somebody said that for whatever reason and that qualified, I would assume then we would say, okay, well, here's a different book that kind of covers similar themes of whatever we're trying to teach you here in ELA, and then you would write on that book.
So I supposedly heard that the alternative for the Renaissance Fair was a 30-page essay. So my daughter absolutely wanted to go to the Ren Fair.
Oh, well, who knew?
I know.
30 pages.
Yeah.
Wow. You can get a master's degree.
I know, I was gonna say,
Yeah.
I was cracking up.
Okay.
So Emily, your exhibit is extensive,
Yes, sir.
to put it mildly.
Well, again, that is because I'm trying to combine more than just this religious exemption into a single form so that we can have that online. And
Yeah.
it's for ease of use and transparency.
So
It's like a one-stop shop.
I think I would defer to Brittany to work on that, though.
That's fine.
Yeah.
This is I'm just put it out here to kind of illustrate where my mind was going with it.
Yeah. I would say that the sexual health one for us is pretty straightforward. It's just, here's what we do. Take a look. If you don't want to do it, you just tell us you don't want your child to do it. We don't need your justification. You just let us know. Typically that goes to, well, they can do it annual notification. So they literally check a box, says yes or no, and we get it at the start of the year. We just opt those students out. If for some reason they said yes and they changed their mind because we don't teach it till spring and they ask the teacher, then we just have a list of the kids that are opted out and they do something else. So it's pretty straightforward. I don't know if we necessarily need to include that. My most important thing would be, I'm not going to say that I love the idea that I have to interpret things, and I'm not going to go, I talked about this with Ethan. I mean, we're not going to go into some deep level, right? I'm not going to try to assess your religion and what necessarily ties in or not. My biggest concern for staff is going to be that it needs to be specific. You have to tell us specifically what, and you have to have a rationale, not just, I don't like it, right? And that, because that's going to create a lot of hardship for us to provide education and just the time of all of those alternative assignments. But if there was something, I can't think of something, but if there was something that applied, then I think we would honor it. We would provide it within the law, which is the alternative assignment, and we go from there. So I can bring for you, I would say here, my recommendation would be this, because also I think, like I said, some things may change and it may become more specific as time goes on. I wouldn't necessarily suggest attaching an exhibit. I think BP, AR, we give the guidelines and then direct staff, direct us to write that opt-out form. We'll create that opt-out form, put it online. And then what's going to happen is if we end up using that and realize, oh, we actually need a little more information here, we're going to tweak that so that it works best for everyone. And if for some reason specificity comes within the law, then we'll obviously tweak it at that point too. But then we wouldn't have to keep bringing it back also for approval. It leaves it within our purview.
As I say, that gives you more flexibility.
Yeah.
And then I do like the bit though about being subject to appeal to the board, but then I've got thoughts, just wonder what that would look like. Would it be at a regularly scheduled board meeting, and what resolution would we be able to offer as a board? You know, if it's a month past the lesson, exactly. So I am interested in offering some sort of an appeal to the board option. I just think we need to kind of develop what that looks like. Even if it's just a conversation, right? Where we kind of understand as a board what that would look like.
Okay, so I would recommend that any changes we're gonna make, we run by council too, just to make sure they're aligned. So what I understand Greg's question about something about an appeal, so I can speak to that, to Ethan about that before December's meeting and bring something back to you with that. We'll take out the exhibit piece so that we'll work on that as staff. You can direct us to do that. Is there other language? Is there an interest in keeping more of what Ethan has drafted for us? Do we want to move more towards the first page of what Emily sent us? What would you guys like to see in December for second read?
I feel like I might need to read this more. You worked so hard on this. So I really want to honor that. I think my gut is like, this makes sense and I get it. But I haven't just had time to your hard work. So, I don't have a problem with what's on here. I think adding anything that hasn't been captured makes sense.
I will say, I don't think there's an incredible rush on this. If we happen to get an opt-out before this is approved, we're just gonna work through what we have in the law right now. So what we could do is bring this back for a second first read, if you will, and do first read again in December.
I think that would
So you
be
have time to
good, 'cause
digest.
You did work on this and I feel like I'm the kind of processor who needs to spend time with it.
Okay.
I appreciate the work as well.
Definitely appreciate the work you put into this, Emily.
Yeah.
I also like the simplicity of the other one that was recommended and kind of the way that was modified. But I just want to make sure we capture then, especially looking at yours, are we capturing everything in there? But I think simple.
Yeah,
is probably
I
best.
agree that if Brittany, if you want to like pare it way down, be my guest.
Okay, let me take a look.
But
Let
I
me
do
talk
want
to
the
Ethan.
thought in there that, you know, this is, the burden's not on you. It's not on the district. It's just tell us what the problem is and we'll accommodate that learning. That's the vibe I'm putting out, guys.
Okay, we'll see. And I kind of get a little bit of that vibe though from the language that's already there too. Just that, you know, it's clearly it's on the requestor to do the work.
Right, but then there is language about working with legal counsel to determine the solution.
Yeah,
So
Well,
I don't think we need to go to legal to agree this person has this belief.
well, that's just a may work. I think that makes sense to have that as an, because this is the AR, so this is what the superintendent or designee, because it may be worth running past legal. And that would help to determine whether something is frivolous or serious, or try to avoid having a Mahmoud v. Auburn Union sort of a situation. So it might not be a bad idea to keep that in there where we have the opportunity to reach out to legal counsel. Because I think as a board, we would also want to be able to talk to legal counsel if it was something was coming to us for an appeal. I know I would want the opportunity to reach out to legal counsel.
Well, I don't know if it needs to be stated in the AR though, that we'll reach out to legal counsel. We do that all the time. When we're trying to get to the bottom.
So,
I'm not opposed to addressing legal counsel when we need to, but I don't. The way this is written, I feel like it's putting the burden on the district to be the arbiter of somebody else's faith, and I think that's counter to my mood. Seriously counter to my mood.
And I would, you know, agree to that as well, because I know it was brought up earlier as far as we want to opt out to bring up some kind of rationale, you know, and, you know, I kind of look at the other side is that, you know, somebody is strong in their convictions, what they believe in, you know, and what their moral is, how they're raising their child. They might not necessarily know how to bring up a rationale or explain, you know, that, you know, us as, you know, as educators would be able to understand and accept on that. And so I look at this more, kind of gives the, you know, in a sense, kind of gives the parents the options of what they allow, what their children are being taught and not taught.
I hear that. I think going to an extreme, right, and kind of almost an
Yeah.
absurd example would be like if though somebody did come in and say, well, we do not believe in math. So, you know, I will now be exempting my kid from math.
Yeah.
So I think there still needs to be some level of discretion, you know, at the district where we can say, well, no, that's not a reasonable request. You know,
Yeah.
you can't just avoid math.
And I think that's,
Frivolous.
yeah. And I think that's always going to be a moving target, you know,
Yeah.
you know, regardless,
Well,
you know,
we-
I don't believe in, you know, wearing shoes. I think my children should be grounded at school. I mean, where does it stop? So
Well, you homeschool, so that's up to you. But
I'm just saying, you know,
But Emily, the point about the frivolous side, that would still be up to the superintendent district then to determine whether or not it is frivolous. And so they're going right back to determining, you know, the seriousness of it. And so I think it circles us right back to kind of where we started. But I'm good with bringing it back for a first read, like, you know, first read 1.2.
Yeah, I just don't want to slow us down tonight, and I
Yeah.
know I personally will spend time looking at it.
Okay, so just to, so we have all our ducks in a row, we're gonna bring it back for a first read again in December. Between now and then, I'm gonna talk to Ethan about the board appeal question. And also we can discuss at that second time about that may consult legal counsel, whether or not we need that. And ultimately have a discussion about the language we're gonna use, either as recommended or Emily's or a combination of the two. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
We can call it second read though, right? At least second read, and then we just bring a third read next time for approval.
Okay, so if you wanted second read, I'll put it under action, and then if you're not
I
ready,
didn't want.
okay, cause second read, well, cause I'm following the bylaw, which is first read is in
Okay.
information, second read is in action.
Got it. Okay, so let's stick the way you're doing it.
So, we can look at it. I'll read the bylaw again, if it makes sense.
We also, when it is up for action, we still talk a little bit. So,
Right, and then if
I'm
you
just
weren't
saying,
ready, you would just,
you know, I'm gonna
Yeah.
have more time either way. So I also, it is okay, I think, to put it in as an action item.
you could take no action. We did that previously, right?
Yeah.
You could take no action and then, we would bring it back again.
But it's not, I mean, I don't think it's that complicated. I just am saying, I don't think I'm gonna understand it fully talking about it tonight. I just want to read it on my own.
So action then, and if you're not ready, you just won't take action.
Yeah.
Okay.
If that works.
Board, how do you feel? Thumbs up if you're good with action? Okay. Okay. So moving to 10D, September 2025 board policy updates, first read.
Okay, I lied. We actually have four.
I was
Sorry,
like,
guys. This is the third.
baby. I like this one was the easy one, right? No?
Our audience is in for a treat.
Okay, this one, I don't, outside of one question for you guys on first read to make a decision. This is all just very standard update. I'm not gonna go through one by one. It's just sort of, run of the mill stuff on language updates over time, campus security, those type of things. I don't think there was anything specific to call out, Emily and Amber, right?
No.
We went through this very quickly. I will direct you to policy 3515.4. That is recovery for property loss or damage.
Oh, yeah.
Let me. Sorry, I didn't do my due diligence here and find your
Are we looking at
page.
the options? It's page seven
7.
Of
Okay.
the PDF.
of the PDF, yeah.
Yes. Okay. So yes, there's an option here. Previously, we have always chosen authorization of the superintendent or designee to offer award of a specified amount. And this amount has changed. It's gone up to $2,500. It used to be, I don't know what, but something less than 2,500. So if you want to maintain that option, it's just going to update it to say the reward cannot be in excess of $2,500 unless it's approved by the board. Of course, you could also say that the board determines every time, or you give us the option to offer a reward for things that are lost. I don't know. I've never had to offer a reward for anything, but it is there if we need to. So unless you want us to bring something different back for second read, this is the option we would.
I'd like to
Leave.
use the option 1 there.
Option 1. Okay. Okay. Other than that, unless anyone has any questions, this is a pretty run of the mill update pack.
Same page, second paragraph of the first of that policy.
The district may collect debt. That one?
Yes, it has the students' experience with homelessness. Again, I think I missed that the first time.
Oh, I thought she corrected that.
We corrected one of them, but I think I missed that at that meeting. Yeah, it's page 7,
Paragraph 2.
correction.
You made a note of that, Jenny. Okay. Okay. Does anyone have any questions right now on the packet?
No.
Okay, I would just take a look at that. We'll bring it back for second read. If you have any questions, let us know. Like I said, that one is thankfully pretty straightforward.
Okay. Moving on then to 10E, the board policy subcommittee policies 1,000 to 7,000.
Okay, so that sounds like a lot, but good news. It's not. So, if you recall, we put our subcommittee together to go through and look at any policies that hadn't been updated and just make sure all our ducks were in a row. Good thing we did. This encapsulates everything that was left. Yes, thank you, Jenny. She did a lot of work to put these together. I had sent something out to the board, to kind of outline for you these policies. Essentially, the ones in there that are not aligned with CSBA, our recommendation as a subcommittee is just align them with CSBA. They're relatively minor language changes, but they all make sense. There are, however, policies that we recommend deleting. For whatever reason, Auburn has had these policies on the book. So for example, the very first one that comes up, 3515.3, is on district police and security department. We have neither a police nor a security department. It's an optional policy. We don't need it. Not only did we adopt it, we adopted both options as if we have a security department and a police department. So our recommendation would be,
That was Greg.
yeah,
Oh. This was before we were on the board.
yeah, this one was 1998.
and then revised in September of 2022.
That's right. 2 months, that's right. September, so before.
2 months
Um,
before any of us joined this board.
So anyway, it's just it just is an error, but we caught it, which is why we did this process. So there are a couple of policies in there we recommend for deletion. They're all around these things that we don't have. There's a CTE policy in there. That's a high school policy, optional. We don't run a CTE, which is a career technical ed program. So we just recommend those ones that we do not have or align with ours to just be deleted. Everything else we're recommending to accept CSBA language. Any questions on those? Again, thankfully, pretty straightforward.
Thank you. Thank you to the subcommittee for going through those as well.
Honestly, again, Jenny.
All right, moving on then to the facilities update.
All right, we have quite a lot of facility projects, and thanks to Dave for helping coordinate some of these. So jump in, Dave, if you have any more comments. I'm just going to run through a list, and if you have any questions about them, maybe during or after, it would be fine. The shade structure at EV Kane, the shade structure's up, and we had some feedback and concern from staff about the effectiveness of it. So we provided an architectural shade study evaluation that was provided by our architects, and it's posted on the board agenda just for review if it comes up for questions. But it looks like, you know, based on the hottest times of the year, that it would be effective up until 2 o'clock based on the study. But it's not the only shade that we're planning. We're planning to add shade cover for the playground area. And then also, you know, if we can add more to it later, we will. The TK playground at EB Kane is nearing completion. The fence is complete. The gates are up. We just have to install the lock cores for the fence and some minor trimming of the landscaping in the area. And then also, you know, just some last walkthrough in December just to make sure that it's complete. The TK playground at Auburn Elementary, it's going to have to wait till the spring or summer to do the rubber seal. And then the walkway, we've devised a plan to reroute where the fence is so that we can utilize the walkway that's currently there. So we're working on that. The murals at Skyridge and EV Kane on the side of the building have been completed. And we're also working on the PA system at Skyridge and also some upgrades for the MPR PA system are in the works. We're looking at siding repair for the district office. We have quotes on that because the siding's coming apart on the south end of the building. So that's a big project. And our alarm systems are going through an upgrade. We've switched companies to monitor the alarm systems and upgrade the fire security system. The roof project at EV Kane for next summer would be a replacement of partial roofing. We're waiting for the bid on that, so we can bring that to the board. And then we're surplusing the items at Rock Creek. That's a big project that's happening. We're also looking at cold storage replacement at all 3 sites for all the refrigeration units at each kitchen for Skyridge, EB Kane, and Auburn Elementary. And also for facilities, we're reprogramming some of the radios so that we can put them out to the sites that need radios that don't currently have enough of what they need. And we're purchasing additional radios. We're planning a deep cleaning of the EB Kane Dragilia gym because we can't get up there very easily. So there's companies that would do that for us, and it's quite a big project. So on one of our breaks, that is going to be scheduled to happen. All right, that's all.
Nice.
Great.
Jim needs it.
Got a
Anything
lot.
else, Dave?
Thanks, Dave. Thank you, Dave and Jeremy.
Yeah.
All right, so moving on then to 10G, the mission, vision, and core values, first read.
Yeah, so I'll just talk for a second about the process that we took and the rationale. So we had talked several board meetings ago about updating mission and vision. It's been quite a few years. California School Board Association recommends every 3 to 5 years looking at updates to mission and vision. Or when there's changeover of board members and or the superintendent. So what we had kind of talked about as a group was we have all three of those things happening in terms of years and change out of members and superintendent. And it's worthwhile to take a look at our mission and vision. The board did a very significant amount of work on this during workshops. We started in September, several workshops, multiple hours, both learning about kind of what is a mission and vision statement, reviewing sample mission and vision statements, talking about our current statement and what we hoped for it, working through some activities to generate ideas around mission and around vision, and ultimately came up with some excuse me, first read statements here, as well as core values. Asked for community feedback. So we did a survey, had excellent feedback on that. We had over 30% of our community responding to that. A very large chunk of our students responded. And then we took that data and reviewed it as well to get to the core values and final first read draft of our mission and vision. So I'll read through that, and then any discussion the board wants to have in addition, we'll bring it back for second read and approval in December. So the mission statement as it reads now: engage students in high quality education to develop capable, inquisitive, literate citizens. Vision statement: cultivating a community of excellence through high expectations where every individual belongs, learns, and grows. And the core values, there are 3 of them: honesty, tell the truth; integrity, do the right thing, especially when no one is looking; and responsibility, take ownership of your actions, words, and deeds. Any discussion?
Yeah, just want to make a comment. I know, after really working on this and seeing this all together on one page, I know one of the things that we talked about, that it would kind of flow through, and now that visually you can really see that.
Yeah, thank you to everybody who participated in the survey we put out, and some of you came to our workshop. So put a lot of work into this. So thanks, everybody. I think we bring it back for a second read. All right, so moving to board governance, update on requests.
The only request we had was back from in October was defining school visitor for the purpose of that organization, a student organization AR. So that was included within there, and obviously we're going to bring it back again for another discussion. So other than that, I didn't have any requests unless someone thinks one was forgotten.
And then as far as new requests, I think we're asking that same one to come back, but with the language kind of delineating between our after school clubs and in the day clubs. Anybody else? Is there something we missed? Right. Yep. And then board policy subcommittee, do you think it would be appropriate for you guys to help kind of shape what it should be doing for the next year after we adopt whoever's gonna be on the committee, subcommittee for next year? Kind of just like a turnover if we need to, or maybe not necessary.
I think we kind of already have a plan in place.
Okay,
Yeah, we've
So
been.
I think it has to continue to roll.
great.
Okay.
Okay. Great. So any other new requests? Okay, it's like we don't. So moving to 12A, comments from superintendent.
Okay, so just a few things. I want to reiterate and thank Jeremy for all of his work on the Rock Creek property and the partnership with Placer County Sheriff's Office. I know we're thrilled to have our school site being used as an integral part of our community. And I know the Sheriff's Department is thrilled because they've been telling all kinds of people about it. And that's a great thing. So we're always happy to partner with our local law enforcement. They're very helpful to us. And so I think it's a really great thing. They're also expanding the work they're doing with their Placer County Sheriff's Activities League. And so we even have busing happening and more kids being able to participate. And it's an excellent thing for our students. So so I really want to thank Jeremy for all of his hard work. It was a lot of back and forth, a lot of contracts, talking about leases and I don't know, all kinds of stuff. He's walked Rock Creek probably more than any of the students that attended there for 6 or 7 years did, along with Dave too. So I want to thank both of you very much. It was a worthwhile undertaking. I want to thank our school site councils. You had SIPSAs in front of you today. You had comprehensive safety plans in front of you. A lot of people dedicated a lot of time and brain power to going through some very lengthy documents and providing feedback to get those to you tonight. And so I want to thank all of our school site council volunteers for that. We have had on Monday our second PD, welcome back being the first one. It was a phenomenal success. It was a lot of energy, good energy, a lot of people. It's our all staff PD day. So everyone's there, basically 200 people. I want to thank Ed Services for all of their hard work with putting that together. I think we had 8 agendas, 9. Pretty everyone, all of us sitting right here did something. If it was breakout NCI, Laura trained SDC staff on curriculum rollout. I talked about functional behavior. I worked with our behaviorist on that. I don't know what else, BTAM, all kinds of stuff. I will say though, Jeremy wins because he is the most requested return breakout session. Who knew budgets were exciting, but people were into it. So it's literally, that was the name of his presentation. Show me the money. It was, capture them. So anyway, so it's great. And yeah, he will definitely be back because that was very requested for February. We got a lot of great feedback about, I'm doing the numbers off the top of my head, but it was around 87% of people felt like the work was applicable to them and 91% said they were committed to implementing. So great feedback on the staff development day. We want to make that worth our time and our staff's time. So we just are really appreciative of everyone's participation. One of the things we got to talk about at the welcome back, good thing Jenny doesn't have a timer on me, but I promise I won't keep you super long. I'm very excited about. Our data is phenomenal. Our staff worked so hard. Our students worked so hard. Our family partnerships to get our kids to where they showed up on that dashboard technically last Thursday, we knew about it, but it goes public today so we can talk about it. We had phenomenal growth in all of our indicators. We had some kind of growth, some of this just across the board, fantastic. We moved our English learner progress from red to green. We dropped our chronic absenteeism by over 4% and moved to color band. We shifted our ELA by a color band with 14 points of growth across our district. And 14 points might not sound like a lot. That is considered significant increase in the state of California because that shift is very difficult to do. And knowing that 14 points is very difficult to do, when we look at our subgroups, we talked about our students with disabilities. They drop their chronic absenteeism by 11%. When kids show up to school more, they get more of the great things our teachers have to offer. The data that came out of our students with disabilities shows that they rose 41 points in their ELA scores and 16 in math. And today, literally an hour or 2 before this particular meeting, we got the breakdown from Placer County on where we fell, ranked against other school districts. So Auburn had the second highest growth for English learners in our county. There's more. We had the second highest growth for our long-term English learners in ELA in the county. And I will say in both those categories, the only district that beat us is who we feed to, which is Placer Union High School. So I guess if we have to lose to someone, we'll lose to someone else in Auburn. But it is definitely not a loss. It's a win. We were second for LTELs. And then for those students with disabilities, we were the highest growth for students with disabilities in ELA and Placer County. By a long shot, we grew by 41.5 points, and the closest district for that subgroup behind us was a 19.1 growth. So this team should be so proud of what they did. I know last year was a lot of, I think Nathan did this motion, and yes, I think everyone was on a bit of a roller coaster of just learning a new thing. But this board did a lot of hard work with closing schools, with moving us to TK through 8. I know none of that was easy. I kind of got to come on board in this district when all those decisions were made, and then we just had to run with it. So I realized I wasn't part of those hardest parts, but I feel very fortunate to be a part of where we went from August till now. Uh, Look, we're all in this for kids, and our kids are growing because we're working together and we're doing great things and we have great people. And I couldn't be more thrilled. Numbers are numbers, and I do love my numbers, but behind all those numbers live people, and that's the most important thing. So I couldn't be more proud of everyone. So I'll end on that, and also happy Thanksgiving, because I won't see you until after that.
Well, Brittany, absolutely, you were the right person to be here in Auburn. And, I think what we're seeing on the dashboard reflects that, the team that you've been able to put together. So really good work. Thank you. I'll keep my remarks real short here. Also, I'm excited about Placer County Sheriff's Office and that partnership out at Rock Creek. And just want to kind of give a shout out to our service clubs. They did a great job at Veterans Day, and saw the Skyridge Dance Club, in the parade. And then afterwards, a lot of the same students were changing t-shirts to throw on their service club shirts and jump in there and help out with events. And it was great to see. And then Skyridge, I got to go see I was part of the Veterans Day event they did on Friday. That was really well done. So good all around. So turn it over to.
Yeah, amazing job. So it was so cool looking at this dashboard results. I mean, we're in the right direction. So congratulations to all of you and all the staff and families out there watching. Congrats.
I'll echo that. But I really feel impressed to say that your leadership, Brittany, can't be overstated. You're really guiding this team well, and I appreciate that. You did a great job with the PD. And one thing I want to mention is she was announcing all of these great numbers that she had at the PD. And to illustrate that, she had brought balloons in all the colors of the changed numbers. And they were sitting up there the whole time. And then she had somebody walk them around and stuff. But it was a great illustration of going from red. They were mostly yellow. I think there was one blue and a couple greens in there. I mean, you can see the rainbow is shifting in the right direction. We're going for yellows and greens next year. Anyhow, so that was really good. I got to sit in on Laura's introduction to the SDC. She's rolling out some great curriculum. She's got everything divided into modules. It's so detailed. You can't miss on it. It's so detailed, and she's got great supports there. And I'm really happy to see what you're doing with that program. I sat in on some other little breakout sessions. Somehow I always get in Dorothy Steinem's sessions, but she did a little thing on the races writing strategy, and that was really good because a lot of teachers were not implementing that. They were really excited about it. They were taking her worksheets and asking her lots of good questions. So it's good to see them collaborate in that way. And I will say, I went to the Skyridge Jogathon, and I went in a white t-shirt, not realizing I was getting there just in time for the color run. So I'm throwing colors at the kids, and then of course they managed to get behind me and throw them too. But that was a really well run event. And then the same day I got to attend the Auburn Elves trunk or treat. Really well attended, really well put on. The kids had a great time. So many little costumes that I loved. But I have to say this, and it's going to embarrass Greg, but the Veterans Assembly was one of the best veterans events I've ever attended. It was moving from the minute the kids said the Pledge of Allegiance with their little voices. I can't help cry at things like that. And I did, but we got to hear all the veterans that were there. There were 8 or 10 of them there, and Greg was one of them. And I will say, by the time it got to Greg, there were a lot of wiggles going on, but he was telling a story about his service in Afghanistan. And this is why Jenny put the tissues in front of me. And he said the words, girls weren't allowed to attend school. And when he said that, all the kids turned towards him and started listening. And it was amazing to see them listening to your story of service. And I just want to thank you for your service.
Thanks.
That's the end.
It's a privilege.
Well, I don't know how to top that one. I just wanted a lot of well things spoken here. And, as I'm just reflecting after everything, that was said, kind of analogy I want to put together as, with me as, being a builder for over 30 years is that when you're going through the stages of building, you go through, the disasters or the restructuring, the delays and things like that. Sometimes it could be a fast paced thing. And these last 33 years, almost 3 years, has been a fast pace for some of us in this board. But when I saw that email and, heard the good news and, a lot what we spoke about tonight is that when that building's built and you actually get to sit back and look at your accomplishments or what has been accomplished, not necessarily by yourself, but everybody as a team, it's just one of those aha moments like, you know what? Yes. So congratulations to everybody. And, like a few said here tonight, you were the right decision to come on, Brittany. I at times I've been hard on you and but you take it very well and I appreciate that. And you were the right one to bring on board. And you took a big risk. You took a big risk on us, what you're walking into. So just thank you for taking on the risk and taking on the challenge and making it your own. So you're a big part of the fruit that we're seeing now.
With that, it is 8:47 and this meeting is adjourned.